Well, good morning from cloudy and somewhat rainy Berlin. I'm here to attend the Petersberg Climate Dialogue, which is scheduled to begin tomorrow and continue until Tuesday. This is the first time that this meeting is being held in person in Berlin since the COVID-19 pandemic. And I intend to use the opportunity where I will be meeting with climate ministers and environment ministers from across the globe to brief the international community on progress our country has made since we attended COP26 in Glasgow last year. The matters that I will be highlighting will include the fact that we have just concluded the framework for a just transition in South Africa. This framework was finalized by the Presidential Climate Commission and was given to President Ramaphosa earlier this month. It is my intention to take the framework to Cabinet for consideration. And obviously, this framework is very important because it outlines the commitment by civil society, organized labor, business, and of course, government itself to just transition pathways that will take us to a climate resilient society and a low carbon future and not leave anybody behind. I will also use the opportunity in Berlin to brief my colleagues about our climate bill, which provides the regulatory framework for our country to implement our climate change commitments. And as you know, this bill is currently before the National Assembly. I will also highlight once again the devastating impact that climate change is having across the African continent. Our own country was severely impacted on by floods in April this year and again in May. And as we sit discussing climate change, the Horn of Africa is devastated by a 3-year drought, which is affecting the lives of millions of people. There is a need for the full activation of the adaptation provisions of the Paris Agreement and the adoption of roadmaps on how climate finance will be delivered to help developing countries mitigate and adapt to climate change, as well as the key issue that we have been looking for resolution on, namely compensation for loss and damage. In this regard, developing countries are likely to use the opportunity of the dialogue to address the failed financial pledge by developed countries to provide $100 billion a year from 2020 to address the climate change issues faced by developing countries and to enable developing countries to meet their climate commitments. What is also important is to address the post-2025 new climate goal. I will stress once again the importance of adequate finance from developed countries to developing countries to support their just energy transitions towards climate resilient societies and net zero emissions futures. The Petersberg Dialogue, which is taking place in the run-up to the formal international climate change negotiations at COP26 at Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt later this year, gives ministers the opportunity to discuss issues of importance in addressing the climate crisis. Other issues to be addressed include the global goal on adaptation, enhanced ambition on mitigation, finance for loss and damage associated with climate change impacts, and funding required by developing and least developed nations to address the causes and consequences of climate change. Our country will use the dialogue to offer support to strengthen international cooperation and global solidarity in tackling the climate crisis. The dialogue will be co-chaired by the incoming COP27 president, Mr. Sameh Hassan Sukre, and the German Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ms. Annalena Baerbock.